Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. The weather's beautiful today, just perfectly clear skies, mid 70s, lovely weather after the storms, but we've got some serious things to talk about, so I don't want to hang out too long on just the weather. And I know that sometimes, you know, YouTubers, and I've even been guilty of it a time or two, we get, you know, too extreme on the fear and exaggerate things. This is not one of them. This is a very serious thing, and everyone needs to kind of set up and pay attention because something actually serious has happened, and we need to pay attention to it. Over the past week or so, last several days, there have been several X-class solar flares. And if you're not familiar with solar weather, number one, you need to become familiar with it because it is something that in the past has happened that has been devastating to the United States back in the 19th century. And it could very, very easily happen again. Well, not just easily, it will most definitely at some point happen again. And it could knock us back to the Stone Age. We're talking a solar flares, CMEs that would be like an EMP that would happen all over the planet, which means basically everything electronic, digital would be fried. You know, your phones, the electric grid, everything, your vehicles, it's done. It's toast. And you don't have the manufacturing capability to rebuild new because that's toast too. So it's literally knocking you back to the Stone Age. So you have three different types of levels of solar flares. You know, your Class C, your Class M, and then your Class X. Your Class X being the highest. There have been, like I said, 10 or 11 or so in the last several days. 4 of them, at least, that we know of, have produced CME, coronal mass ejections, that are directed directly at Earth. This is very significant. Before I get going, I don't believe, and the experts that I've been checking on, they don't believe it's enough to knock us back to the Stone Age. But there is a chance, there's a possibility. You need to go over, if you're not familiar with the YouTube channel Suspicious Observer, Ben is excellent on this. He is vastly more knowledgeable than myself. So you need to go over and subscribe and stay on top of watching his channel. He usually, especially in times like this, he'll put out 2, sometimes even 3 videos a day. So be watching on that. And he's already put out a couple of today. And you need to stay on top of it. He explains things better. He looks at things more through a scientific lens, although he is a prepper himself. And so I'm trying to pick up where he left off on the prepping and go from there. But what he's saying based on his analysis and others, that we're probably somewhere in the 50 to 90% chance of this causing some type of serious disruptions. We're talking potential cell phone outages, or at least intermittent cell phones, internet intermittent, satellites, GPS outages, or intermittent. These types of things could definitely happen sporadically. It may not be widespread, but it could happen. There's about a 10% chance that this 4 CMEs that are coming to impact us will potentially knock us back to the Stone Age. So even though that's a low chance, 10% is actually really high. Any of you that's ever worked in law enforcement or any type of investigative work, you should probably know that, you know this, that if there's a 10% chance that there was, say, a terrorist attack, that's usually taken very, very seriously. So a 10% chance that this is what's called a kill shot that could knock us back to the Stone Age is actually quite high. Most likely that's not going to happen. Let me reiterate that. It's most likely not going to happen, but we still should kind of be thinking about this. Now, the impacts are expected to start around Friday evening, overnight, maybe Saturday morning. It's hard to predict the exact moment that this happens. So they're, you know, somewhere between Friday evening, Saturday morning is when it's expected to hit. And then that's probably when we would start seeing potential outages. Now, even if it's just sporadic outages, that could be enough depending on the severity of it and where it hits, that it could cause people to panic. I mean, think about it. Saturday morning, people wake up and their cell phones don't work, the internet doesn't work, radios don't work, you know, things like that. It could cause people, at least regionally, to panic. And if it happened nationwide, you know, an entire country, that could, you know, definitely happen. So we have to be prepared for that. We also have to be prepared for just not being able to communicate. That's a very real possibility. I've talked about this before. What if something happens Saturday and you need to call 911? Someone in your home, yourself or whoever, has a medical problem, and you call 911, but the phones don't work. 911 doesn't work. The radios that the, you know, EMS and fire and police and all them use to communicate, they don't work. What's your plan then? This is the kind of stuff that we're talking about. It could also cause power outages. Even if they were just temporary, it could cause overload to systems and cause potential power outages. That is something we need to be preparing for. I'm making this video Thursday afternoon. You've got until Friday evening before this potentially happens, so you've got a day. That's not a lot. If you know, are able to go out and stock up, if you're able to fill up your fuel tanks, fill up water containers, things like that over the next 24-hour period, I would definitely do that. Stocking up on any medications, first aid, things to sterilize water, all that kind of stuff. I understand that 24 hours isn't enough to go out and prep up completely, but if you're able to prioritize things and go out and do that in the next 24 hours, I would strongly recommend you do that. There's more to this than just power going out. These events at this level have other things that could happen. It can actually affect you physically, physiologically. If you have heart problems, if you have prone to migraines, prone to seizures, you could potentially have some type of medical episode with the level of CMEs that are coming in. Psychological could cause increased stress. If you have certain psychological problems, it could be, you know, worsened, could disrupt your sleep pattern. It could also disrupt and cause problems naturally on this planet. There could be increase of earthquake and volcanic activity, and also increase in storms over the next week or so. So all of these things are strongly likely, and it's not like we're saying this might be able to happen. Storms, solar storms that's happened over the last few years that are less than this have caused these things. If you were to keep track, which Suspicious Observer and a few other channels do this, you know, Dutch Sense is another one. If there's a pretty significant solar flare, there's almost always shortly after it makes impact, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and increased storm activity. So that happens. And then also, you know, radio blackouts. There have been many times. There's already been a few times this year that it's caused regional radio blackouts in certain parts of the planet. This one is strong enough that it could cause much wider spread. So this is certainly something to be paying attention to. This is certainly something to be stocking up on and getting ready. Now, I don't want people to panic, because it's unlikely that this is going to be the big one. There's a chance, 10% chance, but it's unlikely. So don't be afraid. You know, don't just lose yourself and panic. But it's still wise to stock up. It's still wise to go out and kind of top off things. The likelihood of not too much disruption that we're, you know, can notice is the likely scenario. You know, there could be slow internet. I've noticed that there's been a few in the past that were pretty significant, and for about a 24-hour period, 12 to 24-hour period of after impact, my internet here at the house gets really slow for a while. So that's probably a more likely scenario. There could be websites that go down. You know, there could be GPS signals that don't work. You know, cell phones may go out in certain areas. Those are the more likely scenarios. And those scenarios aren't something that's going to, collapse us as a nation. But if they're significant enough, or if they last long enough, you could potentially see people kind of panic, especially people that don't know what's going on. They could be, it could start bank runs. It could start, all kind of protests and mass buying of things. There's all kinds of things that could potentially happen because our nation, the people, are just so on edge, it seems, anymore. And so we don't know exactly what could happen, but excuse me, we have to be prepared for that. So anyways, to wrap this up, potentially we'll start Friday evening into Saturday morning is the more likely scenario, possibly all the way into Sunday. So be ready for that. Again, if you have certain medical issues, they could be exasperated because of this. If you're healthy and everything, you probably won't notice it. It could cause storms, earthquakes, volcanoes. So if you live near fault lines or, volcanoes or anything like that, definitely be paying attention to it. And then just stocking up. I mean, that's something that we should be doing, or try to stay stocked up as best as we can. And this is certainly something that should motivate you to do it. But anyways, go over to Suspicious Observers, subscribe to his channel, and stay kind of watching it at least for the next few days. Anything that he puts out, I would watch the videos that he's put out today. I think it's 2, so I'd go back and watch those, and then pay attention to anything else that he might put out, because the one that he released this afternoon, he said there has been a 5th one, but they're unsure yet, but it may miss us. So it's potentially 5 CMEs headed towards us. He thinks that 5th one is going to miss us, but still a little too early to tell. Folks, this could be serious, but there's no reason to panic. There's no reason to just freeze in fear. We need to do the things we got to do to be prepared and keep our heads screwed on tight, because you're not going to make it if you just fall apart into a panic. It's time to get your houses in order and prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.